So, how to identify the right people for your company. Hi and welcome to this session. I'm Claudia Vennemann and I'm partner at the WAfM Diagnostics. I take care every day to see if people fit to specific tasks, and I would like to tell you a little bit about it here right and now. So I have prepared a PowerPoint for you so it is easier for you to follow my speech. And I'm just going to share my screen. Just a second. It will be available right in a moment. So I suppose you should be able to see this right now. Oops, always some technical problems. You probably know these things. First of all, it is working, not directly in the way I wanted to start, but I hope you hang on for a moment. Well, first of all, isn't it stupid to always do the same thing and to expect a different result? The strange thing is everybody usually agrees to this statement, but only few change the way they do things, actually. In recruiting, I witness this almost on a daily basis. I give you an example. If you probably happen to know interviews like this, or maybe you look into the mirror and have to admit that you are doing them as well. The normal recruiting interview is you invite someone you believe has the right education or the right CV for the job. During the interview, you talk about your company. I mean, of course you do. You have founded a startup, you are proud of what you do, but very often the candidate not really gets a chance to present himself. Maybe you are having a really nice conversation, but definitely you will not be able to tell afterwards for sure what kind of success this candidate will have on the job. Scientists have studied this and found out that the validity of finding the one perfect candidate with such interviews is less than 14%. So honestly, if you roll the dice, you can increase the validity to 17%, but I really doubt that this is what you want to do. The reference to just going on gut feeling has been a constantly recurring description of what ultimately determines decisions in a recruitment process. But as you have heard, it is less valid than rolling a dice. No matter how strongly you believe in your own gut feeling, and I do tell you that there are people who do strongly believe in their gut feeling. But what can we do instead? Two things before I answer that question. First, don't just go ahead and look for the one star that is shining brighter than all the others. Why? You can be sure it's going to be really, really expensive. And secondly, we know today through scientific studies, when companies hire a top star, their performance drops significantly. In addition, the group or the team with which the person concerned works cooperates significantly worse, and the market value of the company, of your company, decreases. And secondly, don't just go ahead and look for the controller, the marketing person, or the salesperson. A prototype simply does not exist. And even if you should find some, it will not be an asset to your business because you don't want the prototype, right? What you need to do, unfortunately, is not the easy way around. I want to tell you right away, it takes some time and it takes some work, but it's definitely worth it. And I strongly believe in good requirement profiles, and I tell you why. Let's just think about something you are maybe personally interested in. Maybe it's cars. Let's imagine you want to buy a car. You probably don't go to a car dealer or a shop in the internet just and shop just a car. Probably you have read a lot beforehand. You know about the make of the car you are interested in. You have a list of what factors are the most important to you in a car. You have a list of what you really want in a car. Is safety maybe a top concern for you? Do you need something with great gas mileage? Do you really need all-wheel drive? Does the model offer the add-ons that you're looking for? You have checked the fuel consumption as well as the car's trade-in value and many more things. And finally, you can even think about the color of a car. So why should you do less for people who are supposed to add value to your company? Let's take a look at some figures for a moment. And let's imagine you already own a chain of stores. You have 20 openings and are hiring for market manager positions, which are quite similar to each other. In this example, you are using traditional interviews. For calculating these figures, I use the Taylor-Russell utility model. So if anybody is interested in how you calculate things like this, you can contact me maybe by using the chat here. What do you see here? You have as a method the traditional interview. I already told you that gut feeling is not really the best way of hiring people. In this case, you correctly hire 7. And you hire 13 more, but they are not correctly hired. They do not fit the task, but maybe you just like them. You went on your gut feeling, remember? But what I really find interesting is not that you have 57 people correctly refused, but there are 23 not correctly refused, which means that there have been more that you sent home than the 13 that you not correctly hired. And I can tell you this is expensive. 13 times 46,000 euro. This is the money that you spend wrongly because you have hired wrongly. The 46,000 euro are the average cost of a not correctly hired person. Of course, when looking only at manager positions, you need to raise this figure because the average cost of a wrongly hired manager relates to 1 to 3 yearly wages. So the sum is going to be much, much higher than what you see here. But I want to show you an interesting thing here. The hit rate is only slightly better than the random selections with 30%. So this would not be enough for me. I have higher expectations than hiring just randomly. I gave you the image of the dice earlier on. But just take a look how things can change when you simply change the method you're using. In this example, all the well, it is the same example, but the method is changed from a normal interview into using intelligence tests. In this example, you use a valid test instead, and you no longer trust your gut feeling. And only this little change reduces your cost significantly. You have 14 people correctly hired, 6 not correctly hired, so you are going the right way. But still, you're not using the best way, which is what I'm going to talk about. I mentioned the requirement profile. What is this? The ability to fit in is attributed to great importance in the recruitment process by both employers and recruitment companies, and is described as a requirement for social skills. But to my mind, it goes beyond that. To my mind, it describes as well how we use our brain in order to fulfill certain tasks, which includes whether we use a logical, analytical mind, or rather a creative, holistic way of dealing with things. It includes moods, whether we are aware of them or not. But for sure, moods are recognized by others and very often influence the way we interact with other people. I mean, let your colleagues pass before your mind's eye and think about their moods, and in which you can often observe them. I'm sure you know what I'm talking about here. But I can tell you as well that moods influence the way we think, moods influence the way we use our brain, and moods help us concentrate on certain tasks and do them better. So it is a really valid thing to look at. As the ability to fit in is mainly measured through interviews and references up to now, there's a great deal of room for subjective interpretations. And this is not fair, isn't it? It's not fair to these 100 candidates that we had just used in the example. And again, as well, it is quite old-fashioned, because today we have the means to predict those things before hiring a person. But back to the competencies for a requirement profile. Competence refers to the skills that people use to achieve what is required in a given situation. It may include education, it may include knowledge, it may include work experience and other experiences. It may also include social skills such as ability to work, service-mindedness, and care. A well-thought-out requirement profile can serve as support for creating a competency-based recruitment process if you let it act as a guiding star throughout the process. It should be able to guide how the service is designed, how and where it is advertised, any tests, interview guide, assessment criteria, and so on. A good requirement profile can be part of the solution to overcome accidental exclusion, which we have seen in the charts before. Well, it can help to overcome discrimination as well, which is very important today, isn't it? Therefore, the requirements need to be clearly formulated and sufficiently specific to avoid being misinterpreted or open to arbitrariness. It helps so that the employer focuses on the candidate's competence rather than just going on a gut feeling and is based on subjective values such as sympathy or antipathy. Of course, we want to hire people we like. Of course, we want to do this, and it's nothing bad with this, but the question is, when is this filter going to be used, at which stage of the requirement process? Actually, in order to really do a good requirement analysis, I love to do the critical incident analysis. Maybe you have heard of it before, maybe you are already using it, and then if you do, you're really, really step ahead of most of the people I know here in our market. The critical incident technique consists of a set of procedures for collecting direct observations of human behavior in such a way as to facilitate their potential usefulness in solving practical problems. Sounds good, but what do we need to do? You need to perform a needs analysis through a strategic process where either the need for a specific behavior or competence is formulated. Regardless, care must be taken not to systematically exclude groups on the basis of discrimination. That's for sure. The needs analysis can be based on a specific behavior, but can also be based on what the business currently has or lacks in both in terms of skills and other people. Personally, I love to integrate here all information I can gather, such as vision and mission, the organization chart, any competence and development plans, or even descriptions of the different era cultures in a business, whatever is available, because anything counts. You determine the situation challenge. You write down how average job holders do the task, and you find out best practice behavior. And then you derive requirements from best practice. You use the data and measurement tools to measure the needed skills. Determine beforehand how you intend to measure the candidate's profile and in which way you want to compare candidates. You already get a grasp of that it is quite some work that you need to do, but I can promise you that it is going to be worth it. I can tell you how we do this. We, of course, use our highly innovative potential analysis EPA+. This tool measures 4 levels of a personality. Usually, tests today cover only 1, maybe 2 of these levels. Until now, you had to send candidates to a psychologist to retrieve the same kind of information. Now, you simply send a web-based login to the candidate and receive the results after he or she has finished, from wherever or whenever he or she wants to do the analysis. So this is much easier than in the past. So what 4 levels do we look at, and why are they important in order to find the right person for the job? Of course, we look at the self-image. This is what tests usually do. You confront people with a statement and they decide whether this statement fits them or not, or something in between. Examples are Big 5, the BIP test, or other tests like that. You probably know them. The problem is they give answers to how a candidate believes he or she is and can be altered in any possible way. So you cannot only solely rely on those answers. But when you compare them to the cognitive abilities of a candidate, you find out easily whether he or she is overestimating their own skills or whether he or she is underestimating them, with all consequences to performance at jobs. But to me, this is not enough. And this is what I see every single day at work. And here comes our strength at the WAfM Diagnostics. We take a close and valid, deep look at the unconscious of a person. I believe that it is more than 80% that is really steering our actions and which is unconscious. We can't answer what is your unconscious personality traits, what is your unconscious motives, because we simply do not know them, but we can find them out. We find out how a person acts by measuring the personality traits and why a person is doing what he or she is doing by analyzing the implicit motives. Doing this digitally is the enormous advantage today. We trained artificial intelligence to be able to do the work of psychologists. And you can easily compare your candidates to the required skills of predefined requirements, to the personality of the candidate you want to hire. On this chart, you can see the desired requirements on the left-hand side, and you see the actual profile of 5 candidates on the right, and with just one glimpse of the eye, you can see who fits or who does not fit and why. And the strength comes here. The strength really is taking a look at people maybe from a different perspective. You get the right questions to answer in an interview and so forth. So again, why is the right method so important? You have heard it before, but I would like to go through this chart with you. On the left-hand side, you see the traditional interview. It has a validity of only 14%. I told you before that it might be easier or more efficient to roll the dice. Using work samples, which is maybe a sales simulation talk or sales workflows with a validity of 30%. Self-description, which I mentioned before, has a validity of only 15%. Skills tests, they are better with 45% validity. But the unconscious expressions and tendencies with 45% add to that, and the structured interview as well with 40%. I don't want to bore you with these things, but what I want to tell you is simply that you can make your life easier and let EPA+ do the work of some of them. You don't have to you don't have to let the candidate do all these things in a huge amount of work. on your own. EPA Plus tests with work samples, with self-description, skill test, and to my mind, the most important features, it finds out the unconscious tendencies, the personality traits, and the motives of a person. And only when you consider this, if you really want to hire successfully, you need to be sure that the traditional way of deciding who to hire is not very successful. But it is as easy as this. You use a tool which includes all the necessary measurements. No tool will ever be able to predict a person with 100% accuracy. Never trust anybody who promises that. But using the right tools will give you really sharp insights into a person's way of dealing with things, which help you to make the right decisions. EPA Plus puts all the pieces together for you. You can get explanations for every single item, but of course you can read the executive summary or talk with us for further explanations. Unfortunately, you cannot simply use the single items and put them together like flowers in a bouquet. You will not reach 100% by this, but the more samples you use, the more tests you use, the deeper you dive into this, the more accurate you're going to predict the future job success of a person. By putting all the pieces together, you can get the explanations for every of these single items which you see on the screen right now. We would like to enable you to interpret these things on your own. We offer seminars for this, which are really fun. I love to hold them myself. But you can read simply executive summaries or talk with us for further explanations on the telephone, just as you like. You can use all these information for recruiting as well as for team building. But to me, it is a matter of win-win. You have a win value for the candidate. We are talking flow experience in job situations which lead to success and work satisfaction. And of course, this is a win value for your business. It is helping you to find suitable employees for the tasks that you have at hand. And of course, you reach higher achievement and employee retention. And I reckon you agree that these are the most important things we are talking about today. So I have finished with my time. If you are having questions right now, please write them in the chat. I can answer them right now. I will stay here in this event for some time more, so I will be able to answer all of your questions.